Now let's move to the Trump transition. The president-elect announcing some key roles from for his economic team, including a very familiar face for Squawk Box viewers, not the face you're about to see, which is Eamon Javers, who's got a lot more on the story this morning. Eamon.
Yeah, Andrew, that's right. I mean, I think Kevin Hassett maybe has been on Squawk Box more often than I have. But Kevin Hassett is going to be Donald Trump's selection for National Economic Council director. He's a genial and well-liked figure. He was a figure in the first Trump administration, somebody who led the Council of Economic Advisors at that time. That's sort of like the White House think tank on the economy. Now he'll be heading the big shop, which gets a West Wing office. So a big step up for Kevin Hassett here. He's somebody who is a convert to Trumpist economics, but he's also somebody who's got a foot in sort of traditional conservative economics. So I think he'll be somebody who will be welcomed by Wall Street as sort of an establishment voice, so to speak, inside the Trump White House. The other figure named last night is Jamieson Greer, who the president-elect said will be his U.S. trade representative. That's an interesting selection because Greer was chief of staff to Robert Lighthizer as U.S. trade representative in the first Trump administration. Now he'll be serving as the U.S. trade representative in the second Trump administration. He's a lawyer now at King & Spalding, but he's somebody who's viewed as very pro-tariff. And somebody who will execute the Trump agenda clearly. But now it's setting up this interesting dynamic where you've got the U.S. trade representative as a former chief of staff. The president-elect has said that Howard Lutnick will be kind of overseeing trade policy. So not clear exactly in this structure whether the USTR reports to Lutnick. By law, he reports to the president and to Congress. So a little bit unclear of who's in charge of the trade agenda. And, of course, it opens up a big question now as to what happens with Robert Lighthizer, obviously a key economic advisor to Donald Trump during the interregnum period when Trump was out of office and as U.S. trade representative in the first Trump term. What happens to Robert Lighthizer now? What role does Trump envision Lighthizer having in the second term? All of that now is sort of up for grabs as a lot of these economic jobs in the Trump administration, including Treasury Secretary, USTR, National Economic Council, those jobs have now all been designated to other people, guys. Back over to you.
So, Eamon, the other question that I had was, you look at Kevin Hassett, who we've known a long time, and Wall Street loves Kevin Hassett, I think, for the most part. I think Wall Street really likes Scott Bessent. They have, I think, more moderate views, if you will, about some of the economic policies around tariffs and things like that. And so whether you think that there's going to be a
relatively
clash
moderate,
ultimately.
Relative to Trump world moderate, but not necessarily relative to what Wall Street would want, right?
Oh, yes. No. But I'm saying in terms of where perhaps a Howard Lutnick is or a Robert Lighthizer would be, they have made comments, including Kevin Hassett recently made some comments apparently to Goldman Sachs because they put a report together talking about how he didn't think that the tariffs would be put on necessarily the way they were being described during the campaign and the like. And so I just ask how you think that sort of these relationships manifest themselves, or whether you think they really do start to knock into each other.
Well, I think they start to knock into each other inside the Trump world, and that's sort of the history of how Trump has operated. And if you're looking to read the tea leaves here, you could position this as sort of the triumph of the Trump moderates here, with Hassett getting National Economic Council, Bessent getting Treasury Secretary. Those are people who are no doubt advocates of the Trump trade agenda, but seen by Wall Street as more moderate, as you say, and they are now the ones taking these very powerful jobs. That said, there was this wiggle room where Bessent was clearly the leading choice to get Treasury and then just didn't get it for like a week and a half period of time, where there were people inside Trump world who were arguing that he was insufficiently committed to the tariff agenda and pointing to his interview with you, Andrew, the day after the election, where he sort of indicated that maybe tariffs would be phased in, rolled out in a staggered basis, not something that would happen immediately. That was seen by some people in Trump land as, insufficient commitment to what Trump wants to do. And then you saw Trump earlier this week say, I'm putting tariffs on Canada, China, Mexico in a big way right away on day one. Those things are at odds with each other to some degree. Now, I think Bessent was able to explain to the president-elect that he is committed to that agenda. He went on sort of a mini publicity tour on Fox and other places making that case. So all of these people have pledged that they are committed to the Trump agenda. The question is just how committed, and, you know, are there cross-cutting forces inside the administration? I think clearly there will be.
Hey, Eamon, just looking at Wall Street's reaction, Wall Street has taken all of this in stride. There hasn't been any sort of serious pullback or concern with the markets at that point. And even what President-elect Trump has rolled out at this point, the idea of 25% tariffs that would take place with Mexico and Canada on day one, the idea with 10% from China if they don't cooperate and try and stop some of the flow of fentanyl into Mexico that then winds its way up here. I think Wall Street looked at that and thought, OK, there were already responses that came from the Mexican president, the Canadian prime minister, and it sounds like it's a negotiation that's already under play. That sounds like exactly what Scott Bessent laid out when he was talking about some of these things, kind of rolling and negotiating.
It sure does.
I don't look at the announcement that came on Truth Social laying these things out as being the hard case for what will necessarily happen or that will stay in place through the course of Trump's presidency. It sounded like a negotiation.
Yeah, I think that's the right way to read it, Becky. I mean, clearly the president-elect is already trying to bring Mexico and Canada to the table for a renegotiation of the trade deal that he did with them back in 2020. That's up for renegotiation in 26. He clearly thinks he can get better terms this time than he got back in 20 and wants to redo the deal. And this is his way of forcing them to the table. We'll see if that works or if it just sets up this dynamic where you now get Mexico and Canada putting trade restrictions or other restrictions on U.S. goods that could backfire in a way. But clearly the president-elect is saying, I'm going to signal these tariffs are coming and then see what I can get at the negotiating table.